Hi, everybody. So I work in the daytime at the Walker Art Center. I do the social media. If you don't know, it's a multidisciplinary art museum. We have a stage, we have a cinema. All these artists come through from all over the world. I just talked to Lore Provost, who just opened a show. We got pizza last Saturday. It's a weird sort of job. But I'm not going to talk to you about that. I also teach, I'm an adjunct faculty member at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. Here in Minneapolis, I teach creating and running a business. So I'm a business teacher at art school, which is a weird sort of thing to be in. Like the other day, I was at the co-op, and I bumped into my student, and I say hi, and then I overhear her talking afterwards, and she's like, "That's my business teacher." And I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm a business teacher." I didn't think about I guess I teach creating and running a business, and that makes sense, but I don't see myself as that. I also make art, but once again, I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm here to give you a pep talk to just fucking do it. I think of all the talks, even for this whole conference, I see these people on stage, the people in the room right now talking, and even yourselves. It's this idea of just like, if you have an idea for something, if you want to start a project, if you want to start a podcast, if you want to open a design business, if you want to go to a retirement home and do a fashion experience for the people there, just fucking do it. And I'm kind of here to kind of give you some tips along the way for that. One big one, I think, is do it together. And I say that because, it's 2017, and gone are the days of like the DIY culture of, one person in an office by themselves working alone. I think that it's best to find people to collaborate with. And I also think, like Athena was saying earlier, to find people who are better at stuff that you're not that good at, who are just better, and surround yourself with them, because, I'm not a designer. I didn't make these slides. Shout out to Justin Singley, who I'll shout out again later at the end of the presentation, but I try to work with people who just do things better than I do, and also just try to create spaces for people that sort of make stuff, because I feel like a lot of times, it's very much like these advertising agencies and these design firms, like the people in colleges are like, I don't know how I'm gonna get into there. Like, oh, I don't know if my portfolio is good enough. And I'm just like, all the time, it's like, start your own design studio, create your own collective. And that's what I did in 2009. I was feeling kind of like, I don't really have anything creatively doing. I feel like, what am I gonna do with my creativity? And so my best friend here, Kevin Albertson, and I from high school, we talked about doing a TV show. And we're like, okay, well, let's go to the public access station and let's take these free classes. And then one day, Kevin used to work at this big corporation called Wells Fargo. He got fired from there, and like the day he got fired, I was like, yo, dog, let's start this TV show. And we just fucking did it. And so then we put out this call on Facebook in 2009, and we were like, hey, if you're an idea person, if you're a camera person, sound people, script writers, lighting people, like if you just want to help out and donate your time and energy to this project that we don't know what we're doing yet. But one thing I will say is fake it till you make it. We had a website that looked like, oh, well, these people look like they're doing a project and their domain name works, so that must be a real thing. And we were meeting in my backyard, kind of thinking about like these episodes, and we had these ideas to do. One thing I will say with this project too is that Minneapolis is really one of the most creative cities in the country, and I felt like there wasn't an outlet in the media world where it was telling these stories of like these creators and these people and this culture. A lot of stuff was kind of being missed, so I was like, well, if no one's doing the storytelling, I'm just gonna do it myself. And we thought we would do it in like these like half-hour long episodes with different themes. So the first theme was breakfast and lakes and uptown, and we had all these ideas. So we got these people together, and a lot of them are like a guy we used to work with at Carmichael Lynch, and people I played kickball with, and a friend of a friend who heard about this. And we just started doing stuff and making like TV. And this is also, I just will say, like, this is in 2009 when like video wasn't a thing as big as it is now. Like YouTube was around and Vimeo was around, but there wasn't video on Facebook. There wasn't Instagram even at that point. So a lot of it was just like, we're just gonna make this, and we shot on tapes. Like, it's crazy to think that the first episodes were all shot like on actual physical tapes. But we made this content. We got together in the studio. This is from our Christmas episode, where we all got together and kind of like had this idea to do a holiday episode. We interviewed really interesting people. We had this concept of like, well, usually when you interview someone, you would sit on the same level as them. But what if we sat on stools and our guest was like sitting down? So this guy is like the head of the yacht club at Lake Calhoun. This is actually tonight. There's a thing called in Minneapolis called the Zombie Pub Crawl. Shout out to Jonathan Ackerman and Taylor Carrick, who helped grow that. But back in the day, it really was just like a bar crawl where people got drunk and dressed as zombies. And now it's a big concert. Like T-Pain's playing that in Third Eye Blind. Shout out to T-Pain. But we interviewed zombies and had a whole show about zombies. The dapper fellow in the suit there is the former mayor of Minneapolis, R.T. Ryback. And, we were like, could we interview the mayor? Is that something that we can do for our TV show? And we emailed the mayor, and he was like, yeah, I'll talk to you guys. And so we interviewed the mayor. We just fucking did it. We ended up having our own studio, office space. And sort of the interesting thing with this is that a lot of it was video-based, but then kind of what people have been talking about today is that you might start off by doing something. At first, we were like a half-hour-long TV show, but then we evolved into online video through snippets of content, and then we started doing like non-video content. So we had like artists do comics, and we had interviews and articles and writers. So we kind of evolved, and it's sort of like just because you did something a long time ago doesn't mean it can't change and can't evolve. We started making music videos too. We started doing this thing called Stadium Music, and we were shooting stuff in like people's basements and using equipment from my now employer, MCAD. And we started doing. We somehow got in touch with Yell, who's this French pop singer, and we were like, oh, would you want to do a video while you're in Minneapolis? And Yell's like, yeah, you know what? That sounds interesting. And so Yell did this video. And through happenstance, Dan, who shot these videos, he ended up going on tour with Bon Iver, that dude from Wisconsin, and he bumped into Ryan Schreiber from Pitchfork, by the way, which was started in Minneapolis. And then Ryan was like, oh, you guys make videos in Minneapolis, or music and videos and with bands? You want to put these on Pitchfork? And we're like, yeah, why not? So this is Destroyer or Andrew Bird? Oh, this is Battles. And we have a huge film crew. And I just want to say, all these people, they did it for the passion. They didn't do it for a paycheck. We weren't really making a lot of money, if any at all. We just did it because we wanted to. We had this thrust to go out there into the world. Joanna Solotaroff right here with the microphone. So she came back from Japan, and she was like, just came back from Japan, and I'm kind of coming back to Minneapolis. I don't really know what's going on in the city. My friend told me about this place. I kind of have this idea, and I was like, just fucking do it. And so her idea was a thing called Street Stories, where we go to where the stories happened, and the people tell about the story, and then somehow they got animated or illustrated. And so she started making these, and then she bounced eventually to New York, and then is now the producer for Two Dope Queens on WNYC, which is a really great podcast if you haven't heard of it. Phoebe's right there. Andy Erickson also was a really great comedian, local comedian at the time. And she, we kind of booked her for some live events. And we talked about, oh, do you want to do like a video series? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. So we just fucking did it. And then eventually, she ended up on like Last Comic Standing and goes on tour across the country and does comedy. And sort of one of the crazier just fucking do it stories is Hannibal Buress. He's a dude, he's a comedian, he's on Broad City, he has his own Comedy Central show. I was at Pitchfork one year, I had his email address, I saw that he was coming to Minneapolis, and I was like, hey, can I do an interview with you? And that's kind of my idea, like, I want to do an interview with someone, I'm just going to ask him. And he's like, I want to ride Segways. And I was like, okay, cool. So I called this Segway shop in Minneapolis, and I was like, hey, so Hannibal Buress is coming to town. This was like in 2011. And so he had a name, he was like an SNL writer and 30 Rock, but he wasn't like doing Netflix specials. And I was like, hey, well, Hannibal's gonna come to town, and like, you need to give us segways because we need to film this. And they're like, cool, here's 4 segways for the day, which is like a $300+ value, and we rode around segways. Just fucking do it. I think that you can do whatever you want to do, and that's the thing too. As I feel like we're often sort of bound by this idea of like, you're a designer, you're an illustrator, you're a photographer. No, fuck that. You can be what you want to do. You can do what you want to do. So one project that I kind of did out of the middle of nowhere was make an online magazine, like an actual digital publication. It was a PDF at the time, and you know, we had different themes. So we had Halloween and underground, and these are all like local creators that we kind of brought in to sort of help kind of bring these ideas to life. And it was a submission-based publication, so we put calls out into the community, said, hey, if you want to be a writer, if you want to tell your story, here's a space for you. And it was one kind of fascinating story about that. If there was a fellow who was a quadriplegic or a paraplegic who never wrote about his story at all. And we kind of gave him the space to kind of tell like what happened, and it felt, he was like, I really appreciate that space. Adventure, freedom, movement, anonymous, downtown, and lost were all sort of different themes. And also beauty and internet. So once again, just fucking do it. Try it. Try stuff out. One thing that we tried out of the middle of nowhere was this concept called Pizza Camp. It's a real thing. Paige and I, so Paige runs this thing, Paige Gugamos runs a thing in Minneapolis called Minneapolis Pizza Club. And I was throwing some parties, which we'll talk about shortly, and I kind of hit her up, and I was like, you want to do like a pizza party sometime? And we were looking at like this rec center by a lake. And I was like, okay, that sounds kind of cool, but you can't bring booze there because it's a park. And we were like, I don't know how we're going to do this party without that. And somehow, like, I stumbled upon this campground, and I was like, wow, you can fit 60 people in here. Like, could we do a camp for pizza lovers? And she's like, pizza camp. And so it became to be like pizza camp. And this was like May 2014. And you know, we threw our first one September 2014. Like the weekend after we talked, I called the Park Place and I was like, hey, you have any openings this year? And they're like, we have 1 day left on September. We're like, we'll take it. And we put the word out to our friends, and we started throwing pizza camps. So this is pictures from our 4th one this past year. People stay in these cabins. They're really uncomfortable. It's like the worst. I mean, I love pizza camp, but I also dread that night of sleep because I'm like, for one, you're doing stuff all day long. 2, you're sleeping on these cots in these cabins, not comfortable. But come to pizza camp, it's gonna be really awesome and fun because you know we all get together in this lodge and we surprise people. So one thing this idea of try it is like we like to try new things each year. And so this year we were like, could we get donuts as pizza and like that would be the first thing that people eat in the morning, and it worked. They do a wilderness activity. Afterwards, there's lunch. This year we had pizza burgers. There's archery and canoeing. This year we also had a water balloon fight. We were like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and it worked. We tried it. Just fucking do it. And then at night, all the campers get together and they make their own pizzas. It's actually part of a tri-pizza system that we're really happy to sort of coin. We have delivery pizza come first so people can get a little bit like their hunger satiated. And then we have pizza rolls and bagel bites. And then people can make their own pizzas. In this pizza oven that we bring up to the woods. And then at the end of it, there's a bonfire. And then also this past year, we were like, could we have an artist in residence? Is that something that we could do? And yeah, we just fucking did it. And we got Brian Matthew Hart to come and kind of make these light portraits and do these 3D sculptures with his phone. Once again, just fucking do it. What's the worst that can happen? I heard that phrase today. And it's something I think about too, is like, well, what's the worst that can happen by doing something? And so in 2011, my friend at the time, Matthew Jacobs, had been throwing dance parties on a Tuesday night at this VFW in Uptown. It's a weird spot for it. But he's like, hey, there's a basement in there, and we could maybe throw a dance party in there. And I was like, well, I haven't really ever thrown a party before, like public that way, and like I don't know, like how are we gonna who gonna get the DJ? I actually was just looking on Facebook this morning and saw my memories, and there's a post being like, "Does anyone have party lighting? I need some party lighting for this party." So we threw a party in the basement. That's us after the first party. People came and it was all sweaty and we danced and we thought about this idea of, we're millennials or zennials because we're kind of Gen X and on the cusp of millennials. And we were like, well, what would we want to dance to? And we were like, let's focus on 2007 to 2011. So, or no, 97 to 2007. And so we kind of had this idea of Forever Young, and we wanted to play all this nostalgic music. So we started having these nostalgic sort of dance parties. One, we had the salon people from House Salon come do free makeovers for our slumber party. We also had a 7 Minutes in Heaven at that party. At our beach party, we somehow found a lifeguard stand, and we had this lifeguard on stage that was just like whistling at dancers the whole party. This is one of the, I guess maybe one of the funnest moments of my life. I can probably say that, is that we had this dance party, and it was also another slumber party, and I was like, well, you have to get pizza at slumber parties. So I took a cab to Little Caesars and bought like these 10 pizzas, and then Liz Apple, who's here, who's a designer at Target, made the Sinuses Pizza Party. So we're on stage with the Sinuses Pizza Party and just giving out free pizza to people. And you think about, you're drunk at a dance party, and all of a sudden there's pizza there. You're like, what? These faces of like pure joy. Like, it was just so amazing to see those faces. We had a birthday party when we turned 1. But all that kind of led to being able to throw parties at First Avenue. So First Avenue is this premier nightclub in Minneapolis. There's this dude named Prince Roger Nelson. I'm not sure, maybe you heard of him. He filmed Purple Rain there. And so it was kind of a crazy thing to throw these basement parties, and then all of a sudden to be like, oh, you want to throw a party in this like mecca of music? And we're like, yeah, what's the worst that can happen throwing parties at First Avenue? So we continue to do that. We have this prom party every year. It's quickly evolved. That's me on stage, a room full of people. We bought these like crazy light structures in and became experiential. It's awesome that Meg brought these people in who are not necessarily designers. And I don't really consider myself a designer, but looking back, I kind of do design experiences in a way. But so we kind of have these crazy light structures. And once again, just fucking do it. And I have some closing thoughts that I'd like to share. One, trust your gut. So really just like, I feel like we all have this internal barometer, thermometer thing inside of us, and I feel like you have to sort of just believe in yourself and trust it. And really sort of the idea of trusting it and knowing that like, okay, I really should go and record that podcast. I really should go write that book. Like, trust your gut and trust that feeling inside you. It's okay to fail. I give some talks from time to time, and one of my talks is all about my failures, because like you're looking at this and you're like, wow, pizza camp and dance parties and MPLS.TV. No, I fail too, and I'm proud of failing, because I think it's something that you have to learn from your failures. You have to learn from those experiences. Ask for help. I mentioned that earlier, and I think that we're not just a lonely creator on an island working on our own and designing on our own and making things on our own. I think that it's very important to ask for help when you need it and find people who can help you and help make your dreams be possible. Believe in yourself. I really feel it's important to get rid of self-doubt and to really sort of like believe in what you're doing. I also believe, I mentioned it earlier, but like fake it till you make it. This idea of like, if you fake it, you have to believe in that. You have to sort of be like, okay, well, I'm now going to be a designer, and like people will think that I'm a designer because I'm saying I'm a designer, but like it's also because I trusted in my gut to say I'm a designer. I believe in myself that I'm a designer. And I think along the way you'll figure out maybe you're not a designer, but sometimes you might be like, oh, I'm actually a kick-ass designer. And I also will say to put your soul into it. I really believe that really put everything you got into your projects. And I think that one, line that's not up here is like, do hard work. And a lot of creative work is hard work, and like not just creative work, but work in like labor in general is an act of really putting yourself out there. But I think that you'll be rewarded handsomely if you do put yourself out there and put your soul into it. So thank you for your time. Once again, thank you to Justin Singley for the design of this presentation. We'll do a really brief Q&A because then we have a surprise.